Hello and welcome to the first episode of Modern Workplace NWSF. If you're dyslexic, pay close attention. It's actually short for Newsflash. Right, so this will be the first episode of many to come, where I'll be taking you through some of the latest news that Microsoft has been publishing around Modern Workplace, some of the new stuff that's coming out, the stuff that you already have access to. So without further ado, let's kick this into gear. Right, so first off, let's start with some generic M365 stuff. First news, Microsoft will be combining OneDrive and SharePoint admin centers. Why would they do that? It's maybe to make one less admin center, yes, but probably because some of the configuration does overlap in functionality, so it rather makes sense to combine those. Some of those functionalities are blocking certain file types of syncing between OneDrive and SharePoint and your devices. External sharing, great example, same concept for two different services. Easier to just do that on one page. And managing access control from unmanaged devices, same thing applies for that. That'll be coming in February 21. Awesome. Finally, Microsoft has also increased the file size limit for uploading of files. It's a mouthful. From 100 gigs to 250 gigs. So people will eventually now be able to store 4K videos. Awesome. That'll be done in SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive, so it applies to those three services. Good job, Microsoft. Keep them coming. Small visual cues in Planner. If you check off those little checklists or the little subtasks, there's a little progress bar, and when you finish the task in Planner, there's a little animation that plays out. Looks like a little confetti. Meh. Small things, but paying attention to the UI, I suppose. Great job. Thanks, Microsoft. Guess what? We can now format font in Microsoft Forms. Even though Forms has been around for, I don't know, many years, we've got a capability of formatting font. Microsoft finally came to the party, so great job, Microsoft. A little bit behind, but we'll take it. Right, you can also share responses to individual people. So for specific people, you can set these as sharing of responses. And when you do submit a response, there is now an option to where you can download your response in PDF format for whatever reason. Apparently there's a new start page in Microsoft Forms. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Enjoy it. Now let's go take a look at what's new in OneDrive. I guess the biggest news here is the fact that we can now create shared libraries in OneDrive for web. Now you might ask why we want to do that. You can do that in SharePoint. It's just that you can do that without having the need for a SharePoint site. So it doesn't come with all the other SharePoint-y site stuff that comes with it. So if you just want to collaborate around content, you can now create these libraries. What's really cool is the fact that it's give you the same features and functionalities that you get with normal document libraries in SharePoint straight within OneDrive Web. And on the left-hand side, you can see that all your shared libraries are listed, those in SharePoint and those in OneDrive. So that is pretty cool that we'll be able to do that. I did mention previously that you can exclude certain specific files from syncing. It can be done through Intune, but now some of the administrators can do that as well. Really cool example here is if you do use OneDrive as a backup for your desktop, your shortcuts of your applications are also backed up, which is pretty useless. So we can now stop the syncing of those .lnk files. All right, so what's new in the world of Microsoft Teams? The biggest news today is probably the approvals in Teams. So from a conversation with somebody, you can immediately ask them to approve a particular document, which will require you to upload something. And there's a little approval process that kicks off in the back end, which is pretty cool. Now, as you start getting more and more of these approvals, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, there's this little approvals button, which allows you to see all the approvals that are currently in flight, their status, etc., etc. Now, because this is built on the Power Platform, it still allows you to continuously build up Power Automate flows that include approval steps. And when you start using them, they will also show in that approvals list in Microsoft Teams. That's pretty cool. I guess the last thing here is that as part of this approval teams process, Microsoft has actually announced that they are working with the likes of Adobe Sign and DocuSign and other third-party vendors to also include the capturing of electronic signatures as part of this approval process. So I think a lot of people have been asking for that, so that's pretty cool. So what's up with SharePoint? Yes, Microsoft has finally announced the availability of the iOS app for Microsoft Lists. If you're an Android user, unfortunately you have to wait a bit longer, maybe not so much. But yeah, that's pretty cool that you can get access to that. Sticking with lists, you remember in Microsoft Lists, as part of the SharePoint platform, you used to have these notifications. Now Microsoft has included something they call rules, starting out at the moment only with these email notifications based on something that changes in the list. But I'm expecting and hoping that these rules will be expanded on to allow us to do additional things with Microsoft Lists. So that's pretty cool. Microsoft has launched a list adoption center, aka .ms-lists adoption, that just provides you or gives you access to a whole bunch of content for your organization, for your customers, to make them aware of the use of Microsoft Lists and how to adopt and use them. So lots of cool content there, go check it out. SharePoint site header updates. So when you create new sites, you remember that there's a little site header at the top. Some time ago, Microsoft announced that the default layout would be the compact one for new sites. But they've also now added two additional layouts. The one is the minimal one, which takes a lot less real estate on the screen, and the other one is the extended one, which obviously takes a lot more space, but does include the option to have an image banner across the header, which is pretty cool from a UI perspective. SharePoint Lookbook. If you're not familiar with the Lookbook, by the way, go just Google it. But there's a new site template that you can deploy into your tenant called the SharePoint Success Site. And apparently it's just a site with some bunch of content that allows you to or inspire you to create stuff within the best practice guidelines that Microsoft put out. Worthwhile checking out and deploying that into your tenant. If you are using Microsoft's migration tool, you can now also, when you do use them to migrate stuff from file shares into SharePoint, you also now have the option to choose OneDrive or Teams as destinations. That's pretty cool. Lastly, if you're part of a SharePoint site you want to add to a Microsoft team, so essentially doing the reverse of what we used to, creating the team and then the SharePoint site. But nonetheless, there's a new wizard that has this option to select the content on the SharePoint site that you want to pin as tabs in the Microsoft team. So small changes, but pretty awesome. That was all the stuff we had time for. So please subscribe, like, share this video, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Ciao, ciao.